Ava Miller stood outside her own house late at night, holding a small suitcase with both hands. Her fingers were shaking, not just from the cold wind, but from the shock she still couldn't understand. The porch light behind her mother made everything look harsher, like she was standing in the middle of a scene that didn't belong to her life. Linda, her mother, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed tightly, her jaw set in anger. Marcus, Linda's boyfriend, stood right behind her, filling the doorway like he owned the place. "You're not welcome here anymore," Linda said sharply, her voice cutting through Ava's chest. Ava blinked, stunned. "Mom, what are you talking about? This is my house." Linda scoffed. "You think buying a house makes you better than everyone? You've become selfish. You don't respect your own mother." Ava felt her heart drop. She took a small step forward, her voice trembling. "I bought this house so we could all have a safe place. I let you stay here because you needed help. I wasn't trying to disrespect you." Marcus suddenly stepped forward, his chest puffed, his eyes full of arrogance. "Not anymore," he said. "You're no longer the owner here." Before Ava could even respond, Marcus reached out and slammed the door in her face. The sound echoed through the quiet street like a punch. Ava froze. Her breath hitched in her throat. She stared at the closed door, unable to believe what had just happened. Her own mother had thrown her out of the home she bought. Marcus had talked to her like she was nothing. A few seconds later, thin drops of rain began to fall, tapping on her skin, her suitcase, her hair. She didn't move. She couldn't. The rain got heavier, washing down her cheeks in long cold streams. Ava wasn't sure anymore if she was crying or if it was just the sky falling around her. Her suitcase felt heavier, her legs weaker. She took a step back from the porch, staring at the windows that were now dark and silent to her. She used to look at this house with pride. She worked years to afford it. She dreamed of feeling safe here. But now, she stood in the rain, soaked and shaking, realizing she had been kicked out of her own home like she meant nothing. She slowly walked toward the street, her shoes splashing in the puddles forming around her. Her heart felt like it was folding in on itself, but one thought cut through the pain, sharp and clear. "They thought I had no power," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the raindrops. "They didn't know tomorrow would destroy everything they'd built." Ava grew up with an unstable mother, controlling, manipulative, and always unpredictable. Some mornings, Linda would act loving and cheerful, making breakfast and talking about dreams they would chase one day. But by the afternoon, she could switch completely, shouting at Ava for things that made no sense, crying loudly, or giving her silent treatment for hours. As a child, Ava learned quickly that she had to watch every word, every step, just to keep the peace. Her father couldn't deal with Linda's behavior for long. When Ava was still very young, he left. Ava remembered the day clearly. She sat on the couch hugging a stuffed bear while her father tried to explain. Linda was yelling in the kitchen, throwing things, calling him names. He kissed Ava on the forehead and whispered that he loved her, but after he walked out the door, he never came back. Linda blamed Ava for it, saying, "If you weren't so difficult, he wouldn't have left." From that moment on, Ava became the parent in the house. She learned how to calm Linda during emotional breakdowns, how to clean, how to cook simple meals, how to stretch money when bills were overdue. While other kids played outside, Ava sorted laundry, or helped her mother write angry letters to people who betrayed her. She grew up fast, too fast, but she never complained. She just wanted her mother to feel better. She wanted love, but she also feared every moment of losing it. When she reached college, Ava barely had anything. She worked 2 jobs, one at a cafe, another doing late-night cleaning, just to afford rent, food, and books. Even then, Linda would call her crying or yelling, demanding money. "You don't care about me," Linda would say. "After everything I sacrificed for you." Ava would send whatever little she had saved. She often skipped meals just to make sure her mother could pay her bills. She told herself it was okay, that one day, this sacrifice would bring peace. Years later, after struggling and saving, Ava finally bought her first house. It was the proudest moment of her life. She walked through the empty rooms smiling, imagining a new start where she could finally rest. But that peace didn't last long. Linda called her, crying loudly, telling Ava she and Marcus had been evicted. "We have nowhere else to go," she said. "You're really going to leave your own mother on the street?" Ava hesitated, not because she didn't care, but because she knew how things usually went. Still, her heart softened. She wanted to believe that maybe this time would be different. Maybe her mother would appreciate the help. Maybe they could rebuild their relationship. So she said yes. At first, she tried to make things comfortable for them. But it didn't take long for the old patterns to return. Linda began acting like the house was hers. She changed the furniture arrangement without asking. She told visitors that Ava was lucky to live with her. She walked into Ava's room without knocking, commented on her clothes, and acted like she had authority over every part of the house. Marcus only made things worse. He was lazy and loud, watching TV all day while making a mess in the living room. He borrowed money constantly, for gas, for food, for emergencies, and never returned a single dollar. He left beer cans on tables, yelled at the TV, and treated Ava like she was a stranger in her own home. Sometimes he even made small comments, mocking her for being too soft or too serious. Ava tried to stay patient. She worked long hours, came home exhausted, and still tried to keep the peace. She told herself it's temporary. They just need time. Maybe they'll change. But deep inside, Ava felt like she was drowning. She didn't recognize her own life anymore. She tiptoed around her mother to avoid arguments. She avoided the living room when Marcus was there. She cried silently in the shower so no one would hear. She was trapped in a home she paid for but could no longer control. The walls that once made her feel proud now made her feel suffocated. Ava's biggest flaw was also her biggest heartache. She forgave too quickly, stayed too long, and always hoped for love from someone who had never learned how to give it. She kept waiting for a moment when her mother would finally see her, appreciate her, or just treat her with simple kindness. She didn't know it yet, but this hope, this deep, painful hope, was the very thing that would soon break her completely, and then rebuild her stronger. Ava discovered that Marcus had stolen cash from her purse one quiet evening. She had placed the money inside that morning, planning to pay a bill later. But when she opened her purse after work, the envelope was gone. At first, she thought she might have misplaced it. She searched her room, the kitchen, even her car. Nothing. Her heart sank. Only one person had been in the house all day. She found Marcus in the living room, lying on the couch with his feet up, watching TV and eating chips. Ava stood in front of him, holding her empty purse with shaking hands. "Marcus," she said, trying to stay calm. "Did you take the cash from my purse?" It was for a bill. Marcus didn't even look at her at first. He kept watching the TV, chewing loudly. Finally, he turned his head slowly, his face already annoyed. "Why would I touch your things?" he snapped. "You're always accusing me." Ava swallowed, fighting the frustration building inside her. "I'm not accusing you. I just know I put it there, and now it's gone. No one else was home." Marcus suddenly sat up, his face turning red with anger. "So now I'm a thief?" he shouted. "You think you're better than everyone because you have a job? Because you bought this house?" Ava stepped back, shocked at how quickly he exploded. "Marcus, please, I just want the money back. It was important." Marcus stood up, towering over her, his voice growing louder. "You're crazy. Always blaming people. Always acting like you're some victim." Before Ava could respond, Linda came storming in from the hallway. "What is going on now?" she demanded. Ava turned to her mother, desperate for support. "Mom, the cash from my purse is missing. I asked Marcus if he took it." Linda didn't let her finish. She threw her hands into the air dramatically. "There you go again. Always picking fights. Always trying to make Marcus look bad." Ava's chest tightened. "I'm not picking a fight. You just what?" Linda snapped. "You want to control everything? This house, our lives, every little thing? You've become impossible, Ava." Ava felt tears gathering in her eyes. "Mom, it's my money." Linda suddenly pointed at her like she was pointing at an enemy. "That's enough. If you're going to treat us like this, then maybe you shouldn't be here." Ava froze. "What?" Linda's voice was cold, steady, and full of anger. "You're not welcome here anymore." The words hit Ava like a punch. Her own mother. In her own house. Throwing her out. Marcus smirked as if he had won something. He walked past Ava, brushing her shoulder hard, then went to Ava's room. She heard drawers slamming, hangers rattling. Before she could even follow, he came back dragging her suitcase behind him. "You heard her," he said with a cruel smile. "Get out." He opened the front door and threw the suitcase onto the porch. It hit the ground with a loud thud. Eva gasped. Marcus, stop. That's my. He stepped closer, lowering his voice in a threatening tone. Don't come back. Eva shook her head, tears now streaming down her face. She looked at her mother, hoping she would stop this, hoping she would take back her words. But Linda only walked to the door, pushed Marcus aside, and looked at Eva with disappointment. You should feel grateful you even had a roof over your head, she said coldly. Then she slammed the door. Eva stood there, staring at the wood in front of her, listening to the lock click. Her whole world collapsed in that moment. Her own mother had chosen Marcus over her again. And this time it wasn't just hurtful, it was cruel. She picked up her suitcase with trembling hands and walked down the street, crying so hard she couldn't see clearly. She didn't understand how things had gone this far. She felt empty, broken, lost. But later that night, as she sat alone in her car outside a cheap motel, something suddenly clicked in her mind. A legal detail she had forgotten. A small, powerful detail that could change everything. Eva returned the next morning, hoping maybe things had calmed down, hoping maybe her mother had realized how wrong everything was. But when she walked up to the front door and tried her key, it didn't turn. The lock had been changed. Eva froze. Her hand shook on the doorknob. She tried again, pushing harder this time, but the key wouldn't go in. It didn't fit anymore. She felt the cold air sting her skin as the truth sank in fully. They had locked her out of her own house. She stepped back and looked through the front window. What she saw made her stomach twist. Marcus was sitting on the couch with a beer bottle in his hand, laughing loudly at something on the TV. He looked completely relaxed, like he belonged there. And Linda was walking around the living room with a proud smile, talking and pointing at things like she owned everything inside. It was as if Eva had never lived there at all. Eva knocked on the door. Then she knocked again, harder this time. Mom? Marcus? Open the door, please. No one answered. She could hear them talking inside, the sound of glasses clinking, but they pretended they couldn't hear her. She knocked a third time, this time with desperation in her voice. Mom. It's me. Please open the door. Still nothing. Linda walked past the window once, glanced at Eva standing outside like an unwanted stranger, and then simply turned away. Eva felt humiliation burn through her chest. Her eyes filled with tears that she tried to blink away, but they fell anyway. She stood there for a few minutes, hoping they would open the door, but deep down she knew they wouldn't. Finally, she walked back to her car, opened the door, and sat inside. She covered her face with her hands and cried until her chest hurt. She felt small. She felt discarded. She felt like a child again. Unwanted, unloved, pushed aside. And as she cried, old memories came rushing back. She remembered being 8 years old, sitting in her room while Linda shouted from the kitchen that Eva didn't care about her. She remembered skipping school to stay home and calm her mother during long emotional breakdowns. She remembered being told she was the reason everything went wrong. She remembered Linda threatening to leave her alone if Eva didn't obey. She remembered empty apologies, broken promises, and guilt that had followed her throughout her entire life. Eva had spent years trying to be good enough for her mother. She had given money, time, patience, and love. She had forgiven mistakes that would have ended most relationships. She stayed through the yelling, the blaming, the manipulation, because she hoped, every time, that things would improve. But now she realized something painful. Her mother had never changed. She had just taken more and more until Eva had nothing left to give. After several minutes, Eva wiped her tears with shaking hands. She knew she needed help, but she felt guilty even thinking about taking action. This was her mother, after all. How could she fight her? How could she protect herself without feeling like she was betraying her family? Still, she couldn't sit there forever. With trembling fingers, she finally picked up her phone and called her friend Leah, who worked in legal aid. Leah answered quickly. Eva? Are you okay? You sound upset. Eva swallowed hard. I think my mom and Marcus locked me out. They threw me out last night and changed the locks this morning. Leah was silent for a moment, then said firmly, Eva, listen to me. Whose name is on the deed? Mine, avawi spered. And the mortgage? Me. And the utility bills? All mine. Then they have no legal right to be there. None, Leah said. You can take action. Eva closed her eyes, feeling the weight of those words. A part of her felt relieved, But another part felt unbearably guilty. But it's my mom. I don't want to hurt her. Leah's voice softened. Ava, she hurt you first. You're not doing anything wrong by protecting yourself. Ava knew Leah was right, but the guilt still sat heavy in her chest. As the days passed, things only got worse. Linda and Marcus began having small parties inside the house. Ava saw cars parked outside, heard music and loud laughter through the walls. People she didn't even know were inside her home, walking across her floors, using her furniture. Some neighbors whispered to her that Linda had been telling people Ava was mentally unstable, that she had run away, and that she had given the house to her mother out of guilt. Marcus spread his own lies, saying Ava was irresponsible and dangerous. It felt like her whole identity was being twisted and ripped apart. Instead of falling apart again, Ava began gathering proof. She collected bank statements showing she paid for everything. She took photos of the property damage she could see through the windows. She saved voice messages of her mother yelling and blaming her. She talked to neighbors who were willing to share what they had seen and heard. She built a file full of evidence, even though it broke her heart to do it. She printed everything and placed it neatly in a folder. She looked at the papers and felt a mix of pain and strength. She didn't want to fight her mother. She didn't want a war. But she couldn't let them keep destroying her life. Tension grew day by day, pressure building like a storm waiting to explode. She knew something big was coming. And she knew that once it happened, nothing would ever be the same again. Ava returned to the house with the sheriff standing beside her and a court order in her hand. Her heart was beating fast, but she stood tall. She had cried enough. Now it was time for the truth. The moment Linda opened the door and saw the sheriff, her face went pale. "What is this?" she shouted. "Ava, what are you doing? How dare you bring police to your mother's house?" Ava didn't look away. "Mom, this is my house. And you locked me out." Linda grabbed the doorframe as if she needed support. "You're betraying your own mother. After everything I've done for you." The sheriff stepped forward calmly. "Ma'am, we have a court order. We are here to return the legal owner to her property." Marcus suddenly appeared behind Linda, trying to look confident. "You can't just come in here," he said, puffing his chest. "This is our home." The sheriff turned to him. "Your identification, please." Marcus hesitated. "Why? I didn't do anything." "Identification," the sheriff repeated firmly. Marcus dug into his pocket with shaking hands. Ava could tell he was nervous. She knew why. Ava held out her folder of documents. "Sheriff, here is everything." She handed over the papers she had spent days collecting. Proof that the locks were changed without her permission. Proof that Linda and Marcus had no legal right to stay. Photos of destroyed property inside the house. Bank statements showing Ava paid for everything. And most importantly, a document showing Marcus had outstanding warrants. The sheriff looked through the papers, his face becoming more serious with each page. He turned to Marcus. "Sir, step outside." Marcus backed away, his voice rising. "This is ridiculous. You're all making a mistake. Step outside," the sheriff repeated. When Marcus didn't move, the sheriff and another officer stepped in, grabbed his arms, and forced him out of the house. Marcus cursed, twisted, shouted, but he couldn't escape. The moment the sheriff said the words, "You're under arrest," Linda screamed. "No. You can't take him. He didn't do anything." "Ava, stop this. Stop it right now," she cried, her voice breaking apart. Marcus was handcuffed and pushed into the police car. He glared at Ava through the window, but Ava didn't look away this time. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. Linda collapsed to her knees on the porch, shaking her head over and over. "You ruined everything. You ruined my life," she sobbed. "How could you do this to your own mother?" Ava felt tears forming in her eyes, but they were different this time. They weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of heartbreak. Because even now, even after everything, her mother still blamed her. The sheriff stepped aside, giving Ava a moment. Ava took a small step toward her mother. Her voice was soft but steady. "Mom, you kicked me out of my own house. You chose Marcus over me again." Linda shook her head wildly, refusing to listen. Ava wiped her tears and whispered, "I'm choosing myself now." Linda cried harder, but Ava knew she couldn't go back. She couldn't keep begging for love that would never come. The sheriff gently handed Ava her keys. "Ma'am, your home is yours again." Ava held them tightly. She looked at her mother one last time, broken, angry, lost, and walked past her, stepping back into her home. Not as a scared daughter, but as someone finally taking her life back. Eva finally entered her home alone. The moment she stepped inside, the silence felt strange but peaceful. No shouting, no tension, no fear. Just quiet. She looked around and saw the damage Linda and Marcus had caused. Broken picture frames, stained carpets, dirty dishes piled everywhere. It hurt to see her home treated like this. But she took a deep breath and told herself, I can fix this. I can fix my life too. She put down her bag, rolled up her sleeves, and started cleaning. At first, every broken item reminded her of the pain she had lived through. But slowly, as she picked up the pieces, she felt something inside her healing too. It was like cleaning the house was also cleaning her heart. She threw out old things that reminded her of the past, and bought new items that made her feel happy and safe. She opened the windows and let fresh air in. For the first time, the house felt like hers. A few days later, she started therapy. She had been afraid to go before, scared to talk about her childhood, scared to admit how much her mother had hurt her. But her therapist helped her understand that setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. She learned that she didn't have to fix her mother. She didn't have to carry guilt that wasn't hers. She learned that she mattered too. During this time, Linda began calling. The first call came 2 days after the arrest. Then another. And another. Sometimes Linda cried on the voicemail. Sometimes she shouted. Sometimes she said she missed Ava. Sometimes she blamed Ava for everything. But Ava didn't pick up. Not once. She knew these weren't real apologies. They were traps. They were the same patterns she had grown up with: guilt, pressure, manipulation. For the first time in her life, Ava chose not to go back. Marcus faced legal consequences. The court placed restrictions on him, and he was ordered to stay away from Ava and her property. Linda couldn't stay in the house anymore, and ended up moving in with a distant cousin who barely spoke to her. For once, Ava wasn't the one who had to save her. And surprisingly, the world didn't end. Ava felt peace in a way she had never experienced. She cooked simple meals in her kitchen, and enjoyed the quiet. She slept in her own bed without fear of being yelled at. She woke up without anxiety gripping her chest. Sometimes she sat on the couch with a warm blanket and just breathed, amazed at how calm life could feel. As she healed, Ava wanted to help others. She began volunteering at a women's shelter, talking to women who had faced emotional abuse, manipulation, and broken family relationships. She listened to their stories and shared her own when it felt right. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was someone who had survived. Helping others gave her strength. It made her see her own journey more clearly. She realized she wasn't alone, and she understood now that her mother's choices belonged to her mother, not to her. Ava wasn't responsible for Linda's anger. She wasn't responsible for Linda's pain. She wasn't responsible for Linda's life. She was only responsible for her own healing. And she was finally doing it. Ava stands at her front door at sunset, the warm light painting the walls of her home in gold and orange. She holds her keys in her hand, turning them over slowly as memories of that terrible night flood her mind. The rain, the shouting, the moment she realized she had been kicked out of her own house. She takes a deep breath and whispers to herself, "This time, I stay. This time, I choose me." Her lips curve into a small, quiet smile. For the first time in her life, she feels a calm strength inside her, a sense of control that she had never truly known. Ava turns the key, opens the door, and steps inside. She closes it gently behind her, not with fear, not with anger, but with peace. She leans against the door for a moment, letting the quiet sink in. No shouting, no chaos, no manipulation. Just her. The sun dips lower, casting soft light across the room, and Ava finally feels free. For the first time, she is home. She is safe, and she is truly at peace. Hey friends, thanks for watching all the way through. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.